I never expected that a simple dare, a silly joke between friends, would spiral into something that changed my life in ways I couldn't have imagined. It all started during my final year of college. I was quiet, average-looking, and not exactly someone people noticed in the crowd. There was this guy in our class, Adam, who was effortlessly charming, the kind of person everyone assumed would never look twice at someone like me. But somehow, despite our differences, we became friends. He was kind, funny, and completely oblivious to how much I admired him from a distance. One evening, a group of us were hanging out in my apartment. It started innocently enough, teasing each other, drinking some soda, listening to music. Then, one of my more mischievous friends brought up the idea of trying something crazy, cross-dressing. He joked that it would be hilarious to see me, of all people, dressed up like a girl. I laughed nervously, thinking it was just harmless fun, a one-time joke. But the more they pressed, the more curious I became. I had always wondered, in secret, what it might feel like to look in the mirror and see a girl's face staring back. With trembling hands, I agreed. My friends helped me set up in the living room. They pulled out clothes they had borrowed from their sisters, wigs, makeup kits. I felt exposed, vulnerable, but also strangely exhilarated. I closed my eyes as they guided me through it: foundation, mascara, eyeliner, lip gloss. Each brush stroke felt like a step away from the version of me everyone knew, and toward a version I had never allowed myself to explore. When I opened my eyes, I barely recognized myself. The reflection staring back was softer, more delicate, undeniably feminine. I felt a shock of something I couldn't name, a thrill, a fear, a curious sense of freedom. At first, it was just jokes and laughter. My friends teased me relentlessly, snapping pictures that I begged them to delete, and yet couldn't stop peeking at. But as the evening went on, something unexpected happened. Adam came over to see what all the noise was about. I had been careful to hide my nerves, but when he saw me, he froze for a moment. There was a look in his eyes I couldn't quite read, a mixture of surprise, admiration, and interest. He smiled, awkwardly at first, then more genuinely, and said, You look amazing." I felt my heart stutter. Amazing. That word, coming from him, made me feel like the world had shifted on its axis. I laughed it off, brushing it off as a silly compliment, but I could feel his gaze lingering, studying every detail of the persona I had become in those few hours. It was intoxicating and terrifying at the same time. Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about that moment. I experimented in secret, trying on different outfits, experimenting with hairstyles and makeup, discovering nuances of myself I had never explored. It wasn't about impressing anyone, at least, that wasn't the initial intention. It was about understanding a side of me I had always hidden, a side that somehow felt more authentic than the one I showed to the world. Then one afternoon, Adam messaged me. He wanted to meet up. My stomach dropped. When we met, he seemed more casual than usual, but there was an edge of nervousness I could detect. He started talking about his day, about classes and mutual friends, but his eyes kept flicking toward me in a way that made my chest tighten. Eventually, he asked, hesitantly, if he could see me as that version of myself again. My heart pounded, but I found myself saying yes. When he saw me, dressed in a soft, pastel dress, my hair flowing over my shoulders, perfectly framed by a simple makeup look, he was silent for a long moment. Then he smiled, not the playful, teasing smile of a friend, but a genuine, warm smile that reached his eyes. He said, "I don't know what it is, but I like this. I like you like this." I wanted to deny it. I wanted to say it was just the outfit, just the makeup, just the illusion of a girl. But deep down, I knew he wasn't talking about that. He was talking about me, the part of me that I had been too scared to show, the part one had always hidden even from myself. From that day on, things changed. Adam started spending more time with me, sometimes casually, sometimes in ways that felt too intimate for friendship. He would compliment my appearance, sure, but it went beyond that. He listened differently, laughed differently, treated me differently, as if he had discovered a whole new layer of who I was, and he liked it. He didn't push, didn't question, he simply accepted and encouraged. I was terrified of the consequences, of being seen by the wrong people, of having my secret exposed. But with Adam, I felt seen in a way I had never experienced. I started to bring him into my world more, sharing little details of my life, showing him how I transformed myself, the outfits I tried, the small experiments with my voice, the careful art of presenting as someone else. He was endlessly patient, fascinated, and kind. One evening, we were sitting on my balcony, city lights flickering in the distance. I was dressed in a simple, elegant outfit, my hair loosely curled. He turned to me, serious for the first time. "I like you," he said, softly. "Not just this version, not just your funny, shy side. I like all of it. I like you." I couldn't speak. I felt a mixture of relief, fear, joy, and disbelief. The weight of my secret, the fear of judgment, the anxiety of being exposed, it all seemed to melt away in that moment. He didn't care that I sometimes wore makeup, that I sometimes explored a different gender expression. He cared about me. Me. From that point, our relationship evolved. We started spending more time together in ways that weren't bound by appearances. He met me as both myself and this new, more fluid persona, never pressuring me, always encouraging me to be authentic. I realized that the fear I had carried for so long, the fear of being seen, judged, or rejected, was slowly dissipating. With him, I could exist fully, openly, without pretense. There were challenges, of course. Some days, I would struggle with my identity, wondering if I was confusing him, wondering if I was betraying myself or him. But each time, he reassured me in subtle ways, a touch on the shoulder, a compliment, a shared laugh, a patient listening ear. He loved me not in spite of my complexity, but because of it. Over time, I grew more confident. I experimented boldly, exploring fashion, makeup, hairstyles, and the nuances of expression that made me feel whole. Each transformation wasn't about tricking anyone or playing a role, it was about discovering facets of myself I had been too afraid to acknowledge. And Adam was there through it all, witnessing, encouraging, appreciating without judgment. One day, as we walked through the campus gardens, a friend from class stopped us, looking surprised. "Wow, you look different," they said. I smiled, a little self-consciously, but Adam squeezed my hand, silently saying, "This is fine." In that moment, I realized that my identity wasn't just something I hid or transformed for the sake of curiosity. It was a real, living part of me. A part that could coexist with my friendship, my love, my daily life. By the end of the semester, the connection between Adam and me had deepened into something undeniable. Not because of appearances or novelty, but because of trust, acceptance, and shared vulnerability. I had learned that courage wasn't about daring or dares or secrets, it was about embracing who you were, fully, and finding someone who could see all of it and still choose to stay. He fell for the girl version of me, yes, but more importantly, he fell for me, all of me. And through that, I discovered that love and acceptance start within, but flourish best when mirrored in someone else who truly sees you. My life didn't change because I dressed differently or experimented with makeup. It changed because I allowed myself to be fully seen, and I found someone willing to see and love that version of me without hesitation. Looking back now, I realize that night of teasing, that silly dare, was never about humor or ridicule. It was a doorway into self-discovery, courage, and authentic love. I don't regret a single moment, not the fear, not the vulnerability, not the uncertainty. Because through it all, I found myself, and in doing so, I found someone who loved me, truly and completely, for every facet of who I am. And that, more than anything, is a transformation that lasts far beyond appearances. I remember the first time I decided to step outside fully dressed as her. My heart was pounding in my chest, each step down the street feeling like I was walking on a tightrope. The city was alive around me, oblivious to the storm inside my head. I could feel every glance, every whisper, but Adam had told me something that kept echoing in my mind: "You are more than what they see. And I'll see all of it." I had chosen a soft pink dress that hugged me in all the right places but didn't scream for attention. My hair cascaded over my shoulders in waves I had practiced in the mirror countless times. My hands shook as I adjusted the strap of my bag. What if someone recognized me? What if they laughed? But then I saw Adam waiting at our usual coffee spot. The way he smiled, seeing me exactly as I wanted to be seen, gave me the courage to breathe, to walk, to be. "Wow," he said, voice low, eyes taking me in like I was the only person in the world. "You look perfect." I laughed nervously, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. "I feel like a completely different person," I admitted, my voice trembling just enough to betray my nerves. "You are," he said. "And that's the best version of you I've ever seen." Sitting across from him, sipping coffee, I noticed how natural it felt. No judgment, no questions, just acceptance. And it was in that moment I realized something I hadn't fully acknowledged before. I wasn't just experimenting with a persona. I was uncovering myself. Each outfit, each brushstroke, each careful detail was not a disguise, it was me, finally allowed to exist in full, without fear. Our walks became routine, small adventures in which I could explore this identity safely, with Adam beside me. He never pressured me, never made me feel like I was an object of curiosity. Instead, he became my anchor, my mirror, reflecting back the parts of me I was too scared to embrace. Sometimes he would grab my hand in public, giving me that subtle, grounding reminder that I wasn't alone. But not everything was easy. There were moments of panic, when someone would stare too long or laugh under their breath. My stomach would twist, my hands would shake, and I'd feel like retreating into the shadows of my old self. One evening, after a particularly harsh comment from a stranger, I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. I wanted to run home, hide the dress in the back of my closet, pretend none of this had ever happened. Adam noticed immediately. He pulled me into a quiet corner, hands steady on my shoulders. "Hey," he said softly, "look at me. You are amazing. This isn't just about how you look. It's about who you are. And I'm here. I love this version of you. I love you." The words settled over me like a warm blanket, dissolving the fear, even if only for a moment. I realized then that courage wasn't about pretending not to be scared. Courage was about stepping forward anyway, even when your heart is trembling, even when the world might judge. Time passed, and our connection deepened. He met me at my most vulnerable, most authentic moments. I showed him the outfits I created on my own, the styles I experimented with when I was alone. I let him see the nervous, excited, joyful, and scared parts of me. And he loved me through all of it, the same way I was learning to love myself. One afternoon, we sat in the park, the sun warm on our faces. I was in a flowing light blue dress, my hair tied loosely with a ribbon. He reached over, took my hand, and said something that made my heart stop. "I don't care if anyone else understands this. I don't care about the labels. I care about you. And I want to see all of you, every version, every layer, every fear, every triumph. You don't have to hide anything from me." In that moment, I felt a shift inside me. It wasn't just about being a girl or experimenting with identity. It was about trust, about connection, about being fully known and fully accepted. I leaned against him, breathing in the warmth of that truth, and for the first time, I felt completely safe. Later, as we walked home, holding hands, I caught a reflection in a shop window. It was me, not just the girl version, not just the quiet, shy me, but a combination of every part of myself I had been too afraid to show. And beside me, Adam smiled, giving me a look that said he loved all of it. I realized then that love doesn't always come with fireworks or grand gestures. Sometimes it's quiet, steady, unwavering. Sometimes it comes from someone who sees the layers you've hidden from the world and chooses to hold them gently, carefully, as if they are the most precious things they've ever known. He fell for the girl version of me, yes. But he also fell for the person I had been too scared to be until I finally allowed myself the courage to step into the light. And that, I realized, was the most transformative moment of all, realizing that being yourself, fully and unapologetically, could create a love so deep it reshaped not just a relationship, but your entire sense of who you were. Looking back, I don't regret a single moment, the fear, the secrecy, the vulnerability. It all led me here, to a place where I was fully seen and fully loved. And in that space, I discovered the truth that had eluded me for so long. Courage and love are inseparable, and sometimes, the most daring act is simply to be yourself.